Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Hammer Museum. I'm Annie Philbin, director of the Hammer. I'm very excited to welcome you tonight to the screening of Born to Fly. Tonight's film is the ultimate story of human determination. I have known Elizabeth Streb for close to 4 decades. We came of age together in New York City in the downtown art scene. We worked together in a restaurant in the West Village. She was the chef, and I was a waitress. And despite our kitchen battles, and there were many of them, she was always an inspirational figure for me. Elizabeth changed the world of dance when she performed her piece, Little Ease, in 1985. And it is an iconic work, and you're going to see about it tonight. But it was at the Kitchen when it was first on Broome Street. Really early days of the Kitchen. It basically rocked my world, and I was not alone. Long before the MacArthur Foundation officially anointed her so, we all suspected that she was indeed a genius. She's certainly the only artist I know that reads physics books for fun. I'm not kidding. The film you're about to see documents Elizabeth's lifelong fight against something the rest of us accept as inevitable. Gravity. The filmmaker, another longtime friend, Kat Gund, is not only an amazing filmmaker, but she's also a dedicated and effective activist, as she's made films on women's rights, education, LGBT issues, the food industry, environment, and other social justice issues. Perhaps many of you saw her film, What's on Your Plate, here at the Hammer a few years ago, which was about kids and food politics. Kat made the film that we're about to see tonight with the legendary cinematographer Albert Maisel, so that's also a real treat. But as one of the reviewers said, I just was reading some of the reviews tonight, and one of the reviewers said about the film and about Elizabeth's work, "You have ruined Cirque du Soleil for me for forever." Following tonight's screening, Elizabeth and Kat will be here on the stage to take some audience questions, and Kristy Edmunds, the director of the Center for Art of Performance, CAP, at UCLA, will moderate. So for now, please turn off your cell phones and enjoy the Los Angeles premiere of Born to Fly.
Can I just get a sense from everybody before we get going, and just to give you also a sense, I want to move you into dialogue with these two extraordinary women artists and amazing humans as quickly as possible. But how many of you have seen Streb's work live?
Oh, that's a lot.
Okay, right?
Surprised.
All right. And how many of you are based in LA? And how many of you saw her work in LA? When was your work in LA live?
Yeah, I don't know. Are you sure?
You saw it somewhere else.
Oh, yeah, that was 1995.
Okay, well,
Lace. Joy Silverman, Lace. That was the first time. In the 80s.
Okay. Okay, can I just thank you so much for that film and that work. To put a little bit of context into probably why I'm here, is that I've worked with Elizabeth on multiple occasions in my roaming around planet Earth doing my own work. So I have a long arc of history with her work, and now I live in LA and work up the road.
But I'd like to add that I think Kristy Edmunds holds the record for bringing Streb anywhere more often than any other single producer on Earth.
So stay tuned,
So
Los
she's
Angeles
brave.
again. So there's something that was said in the film, and I'm just going to start us with it, which I wrote on my hand. In the dark.
I want a picture.
But you said, boy, that was a lot of work for just 1 second. Right?
Yeah.
Which is pretty much your predominating narrative of your life, I think. But boy, that was a lot of work for just 1 second. Also for making the film. So, Kat, can you talk a little bit about the beginning of this film and the journey of the film for you? For you as an artist, as an activist, as somebody who's so profoundly involved in advancing different kinds of ideas into public consciousness through your skill and talent. Why did you settle on this? How did you guys find that idea together?
There's so many questions. Like, oh, I'll say that. No, I'll say that.
Just pick the last one.
The
It
last
was the
one
summary
was
statement.
what originated the film and has become sort of a narrative arc for us in the journey of sharing the film with audiences and people is that I had known Elizabeth for many years. I was at a gala event of hers, and my kids were saying hello to her, and one of her crew people came up and said, "Who's going to drop the bowling ball?" And I said, "I'll drop the bowling ball." And somehow that was okay to Elizabeth. And so I went in the middle of this event and climbed up the truss, which is 40 feet in the air, with the bowling ball. And there was Zaire, her dancer, below with his hands like this. And I was sitting up there, and it was all dark, and there were all these people sitting. I mean, there was a lot of, and all of a sudden these things pulled, and bowling balls on either side of me dropped and fell to the ground. I felt like it was going in slow motion. I saw these balls go down, and they went right to the cement blocks that were below and just eviscerated these blocks, just smashed, so loud and fast and slow and everything. And then Zaire clapped his hands, and I thought, you want me to drop the bowling ball for you to catch it now? And I couldn't believe I did it. I couldn't believe I was going to do it. Anyway, I did it. And there was a moment when I came down, it was speechless, which is a rare occurrence for me. But there was this moment of just feeling like I didn't, there was this whole cycle of trust and risk and fear and exhilaration. And it was unfamiliar to all be encapsulated in such a tiny moment. And since that time, Elizabeth has said, of course, a catch is an epitome of action, an epitome of that moment. Because I keep saying it was so simple. Why does it rest with me is the reason why I was willing to dedicate years and money and my mind and try to focus and figure this film out. And it was really, in that moment, I came down and I looked at her and she said, we're going to London and we're going to do this incredible thing there. And you should come and film that because it looks like you like my work. So I went to London with her.
Yeah, but the trigger was embodied.
It was an experience of feeling this thrill that was based in her trusting me to go up there, Zaire trusting me to drop the ball, and there was this whole sense that I thought, I wonder if I can make an audience have the same feelings to a film that I have to her work.
Yeah.
And it was this, like, I'm not going to go and document her work. I'm not going to just film it and then put it up on a screen. It was to create, mold, have another art piece that was a collaboration between our two kinds of work.
Mm. I think that's part of that thing that, in dance or athletics or various places where it's like a form of embodied intelligence starts to move you in a different direction than the other kinds of intelligences, which are typically overwhelming in our lives, linear, success-driven, so on and so forth. Like, what else moves us into human heritage in a particular kind of way? You, Miss Streb, what is one of the things that for you, it's very clear in the film, for others, the impact, all those things. But for you, what is part of that kind of sustained both courage, drive, ebullience, intelligence, the generosity of pursuing something in a very alone way, right, together with your team, but your thinking process and your feeling process to do this kind of work, what are some of the ingredient clicks for you?
Well, I think it actually starts with confusion, and then curiosity, and then the quest for a surprise. And I think that the irony that I think I know what I'm doing, even now, is not true. I didn't know what I was doing. And when Kat talks about the catch, what I've come to realize over these 35 years is, wow, how do you frame action so that the whole audience, because I think Kat's one of your agendas was to, make the audience feel the moves in the way that I always try to make the audience feel the moves. But the theatrical conditions are so completely stilted You know, you have to sit there in the dark, and we're going to be doing these things, and you can get up and leave. But I know that at least in New York City, it's, you know, you get tainted if you get up and leave. It's not easy to get up and leave, and which is a problem with the theatrical model. But I guess I think what I learned just from this film, and certainly through all the years, is it's really the hardest thing to present the simplest thing, like a catch. Like if you could make that shocking, surprising, and ubiquitous, that's the subject of action, really. You know, it's not like sticking one move next to another move, next to another move to some musical notes that will ever excise what action really is as a subject in and of itself, a thing in itself. So I think it really is just that issue of curiosity and then inquiry and then the surprise and then, oh, what if that's the subject and not that, you know?
And the endurance of sustaining that quest for you, I want you to say something about, but I want to alert everybody that soon the mics are coming into your hands. How many of you guys already have questions? Oh my God, oh my God. Okay, it's gonna be lively, it's gonna be real. So I'm going here, here, here. There's somebody who's gonna bring you a mic and you're gonna ask a question. Endurance.
You mean it's a temporal endurance or physical endurance or
Both.
Spatial endurance?
Yeah, both. Because there's the endurance of, how do you orchestrate a catch, or how do you orchestrate, you know, different sets of ideas physically, with velocity, with risk, all of those things. And I think that's clear in the film.
Yeah, I think it's so
I
beautifully
think it's totally clear,
demonstrated.
so I don't want to ask you something that's clear. Is it clear already? Yeah. But for you, the daily, weekly, monthly drive to endure in a persistence of belief, a pursuit of flight, aesthetic beauty, inspiration, rigor, rough. What are part of those elements for you?
Well, I guess I didn't quantify it exactly like that. Every day was every day. It was just like I never had a plan B. You know, so that was one practical aspect of my life.
Excellent, very good.
I get
Have
up
no
every
plan
day
B
and just
if
say,
you're in
wow,
pursuit of flight.
What do I love most? I love movement most. I'm most obsessed with motion. And so every day I would just get up and do that. And then all those days added together. And there was always the love and the complete confusion when I encountered movement, and even watching. And I've watched the film a lot, and I always like to be in the audience because that's what Lifetime people do.
Yeah.
I want to hear, did you get that? And I've learned from Kat about angle of viewing, about, oh gosh, just so much more about my work than I thought that I knew prior to the film and prior to working with Kat.
Hi. Thank you. That was incredible. Just changed my whole life. My question is...
She has a
Seriously,
habit of doing
I'm
that.
so amped right now. Okay. In the film, there was a discussion on emoting and feeling, and it was stated that emotions are not real. One of your dancers said that they are real, they're just ideas. It's about how long you hold on to them. Do you agree with that, or do you have a different perspective on feeling, especially as a dancer?
Yeah, feeling is not really my purview as a dancer. I think, you know, in terms of emotionalism and movement or abstract expressionism or German expressionism, kind of a la Pina Bausch, I don't believe that action can be, emotionalism is sort of, it happens, you know, as a default issue, as a subset of a subset of a subset, if your aim is true. But I don't manufacture or fabricate love, joy, grief, and stuff like that. Every single thing my dancers say is true, and you know they are. Anyway. That's my opinion, but.
So, I mean, clearly they resolve the fact that it's not that there's an absence of emotion, and you're not driven to decorate emotion. A lot of dance does, right? It amplifies
I didn't say that.
No, I know you didn't. I'm probably going to be in deep problem in my own situation with that, but the kind of use of emotion as a decorative element is certainly structurally not something that you're actively involved in.
I think that it's an inappropriate formal approach to what action can do as a discipline, most strongly.
Yeah.
But I feel like that part of why we were able to make a film out of the action enterprise Elizabeth is engaged in is because of her persistence of vision, because of her focus and her target, and that actually, to me, there's enormous amounts of emotion in her work if you bring that dimension to it, if you're involved in having a relationship with her dancers, with yourself. I mean, I feel like the bravery that maybe when you say you feel so amped, like when I see the work, it does make me feel brave. It makes me feel like I can go and do things. I can make decisions even, that. And I think that is, to me, a real emotional thing without being a decorative or a manipulated sorrow or joy.
Yeah. And I know the dance company and the dancers very, very well. And their commitment to the execution of action and movement and physical tasks and trust and self-stretch creates a variety of other opportunities for people to feel a very great deal by watching. And they care about the feeling potential of who is watching. But they're not trying to tell you what to feel.
Can I say one more
Please.
thing about it?
Geez, I'm not a
because
dictator.
I feel
I'm
like
just...
that to me, a real pivotal moment in the film is when Deanne talks about her 5 years of being able to reflect back on her accident and the loss she experienced in her life due to that moment of dancing with Elizabeth. And when she says, you don't catch that feeling every day, she's talking about an emotion. And some people might say that is love, or some people, she calls it magic. In a lot of ways, I'm trying to explore what part of art that means, what that means about art. Is art something that is accessible to everybody on that level of feeling love and magic and having this feeling that is transient and hard to catch, like a fly, like a bowling ball, that to me that is emotion and emotional. So Elizabeth and I talk about it differently, but I think we're on the same page.
She didn't interrupt you. Okay, there's another question here. Second hand in the air, right there. There she is. Yep, you. But you got to wait for the mic for purposes of,
Well, it was an extraordinary film. Kat, congratulations. Incredible, moving experience. On the subject of feeling, I kept wondering, because a couple of times, Elizabeth, you said, that was my fault when we were talking about Deanne. I really feel responsible for that. Or when you were watching the dancers on the bridge, you said, have I asked them to go too far? How do you, there seems to be a tacit understanding between you and those who you choose, and they seem to have the personalities to agree to this risk as art form. But to what extent, when you say that, I'm asking them to do something perhaps I couldn't have, and what if Diane had died, or Deanne had died, or something more had happened? How do you live with that risk in the name of art?
Well, I just think that's a pact you make. I happen to enter into an action discipline. I never thought of it as dance, really. I thought of it as movement in the world, action in the world. And I think that, early on, I believe that if there were no danger, if there were no risk, those are the zones that you enter into where action is extreme enough to actually be able to purvey information and subjectness. And so there's always a chance of injury, and I guess the way I'm able to modify that in terms of being willing to walk back into the room with these people asking these questions is that we train a millisecond-based rapid-fire muscle response so that theoretically, and I guess I believe this, that you have a half a second to make up your mind about how to get out of danger. And sometimes that half second goes by and you're not fast enough, or things happen. And so I could slow down. I could not fall from 40 feet. I could not dive through glass. I could not do it. But I choose to do it. And I think that my job is to make sure no one, as much as I can, no one gets hurt, but clearly you can see that they do. And I just, I accept that responsibility.
One thing that including the dancers and spending so much time with them was so important to me for a million reasons. But one of them was because I realized early on that none of the dancers felt that they were being made to do something. And I think that embodiment for themselves in terms of their own access and decision making and is really important, because although there is a give and take and there's questions of cruelty and the mothers come around a lot and people are like, oh, mothers, how do you feel she makes your daughter do this thing?
And then they're like, how can I sign up for my kid for class?
Different. Yeah, the mothers are the younger ones. But to me, what was really enlightening was to hear the dancers talk about how much responsibility they took for themselves, and that there was this sense that, if they get hurt, obviously in the moment, I don't think Deanne would have said that was my fault. Although, fault ultimately to me wasn't even that interesting. I included the line when she says that because it's very satisfying, I think, to people to feel like, okay, this isn't just whim-wham everywhere. Nobody's taking control for this environment. But there was this sense that, all of the dancers will say, I do this thing. If I learn how to take care of my body, I choose to be here. And I feel like it's kind of more enlightened and they're better off than me or someone else who feels like we are in relationships that we don't feel like we are in control of them. Mm. And although she designs the situation and suggests to them what they're going to do, there obviously is power dynamic. They're being paid. It's a job. All those things are real. But I think that they occupy a different kind of place than maybe I would if I were a dancer or somebody else dancing for Elizabeth.
But I think it's also something that you captured really well. And having worked with the company a lot myself, there's an ebullience in them utterly at being given the provocation of self-responsibility and care. It's a gift of pursuit. It's not a reliance elsewhere. And it informs utterly the way in which they can believe that we can fly, or somebody watching them believes that might be happening. Yeah. It's a gift. In fact, when you were working on in the advance of going into the London Olympics and all of that, and I was on the phone with the mayor and everybody else, and it was all happening. Possibly, but how best to advocate it and on what proof, and this is where I was involved in that, was where's the proof that this artist can do this thing that she's proposing? I was like, I will testify to the proof. But what was interesting in the afterwards was I had people from London, and one person in particular, and I wrote it down because I don't know if I've told you this, Elizabeth, but she said, I didn't know that we hadn't yet legislated every possibility out of existence for that kind of thing
Ruth?
To happen.
Was it Ruth or was
this
it Boris?
No, this was a pedestrian. No, Ruth is a different. This was somebody who received the work, saw the work, right? And said to me later, I did not know that we had not in London legislated every possibility out of existence for that to happen.
Well, that would have been impossible because there were so many variables that were a surprise and impossible to designate prior to that moment. Right.
No, but it made her feel an absolute reconnection to her sense of belonging to a place, to a city, to a country, to a moment, to another country, to another, to other. That the surprise of possibility had not yet been prevented.
I mean, I know this is.
Are you guys with me on that?
But if you if you say, and every one of you, I'm sure there's many artists in the audience, that if something goes wrong, you'll stop and not finish the show, then isn't every show you've ever done kind of artificial? For me, I chose to go on, and I would choose to go on again. You finish the show. There's an audience there. And I think that I could be, and I have been severely criticized for that. But there was another question that the producer of the London Olympics asked me. And they said, what are you going to do if someone dies? You know, in the middle of this.
It's a natural
not gonna
question of an
answer that?
administrator. Administrators do like to have a few answers before undertaking the thing. No, but
That sense of possibility is so beautiful
it,
because
isn't
I
it?
have to say, as someone who was there, that seeing these bodies in this place where human bodies don't go, like
Yeah.
between the water and the bridge, the bottom of the bridge and the water,
yeah,
there's never been a human body there. There's never been a human body in the space between the pods on the eye and the hub.
besides the people who
There's
built
never,
them.
but they weren't in that
Yeah.
part, and they weren't there when it was done too.
Yeah.
But you know, just this, there was never really a body walking down on the outside of that
Yeah.
city hall.
Yeah.
So that sense of possibility to me is literally mind blowing. Like it just takes you away from what you expect and what your habit is and what the rest of your sentence. I noticed on my new iPhone, I updated the stupid iPhone, and now it tells you what your next word is going to be.
Yeah.
You're like, it's the only, and then it's like one. And I'm like, oh God, it really was going to be one. I'm not going to use that now. I mean, there's got to be like a way to break out. And to me, this opens things.
Yeah. But
So
that's-
it like
yeah.
just like
Yeah.
makes you
I
think
mean, Ruth
different.
going in, one thing, Elizabeth, but the woman talking to me at the other side was like
Other side of what?
after she'd seen all of the work.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Just really this kind of astonishing, inspired reclaiming of her own, God damn it, what am I going to do in my office today? Because I'm proud of London again. We didn't say no, we said yes. But recognizing that the acquisition of that yes would have been monumental. Yeah.
Hi. About halfway through the film, we got to see, I guess, the new Slam space before it was completed. I wanted to know more about how you found the space, how you got it, and I guess how you got to keep it too, especially since a lot of dance organizations are losing a lot of space these days.
That's great. I mean, if you can
Fast,
dwell on
really
that a
fast
bit.
question. I found it because there was a number scratched on a building that I called, and it was this guy named Carl, and he was kind of had connections in low places. Finally, I kept calling him for some reason. He said, "Who are you?" I said, "Well, I have a modern dance company." He goes, "I don't want to hear your hopes and your dreams. Just what do you want?" But I kept calling this anonymous number. Finally, he said, "Meet me at the corner of Bedford and North 7th." So I did, and I brought my press kit. And he drove me to that building. And we are still friends. He's probably 85, 86 now. He's still friends. And then he almost got in the movie. And then I got to keep it, well, because Doug Steiner, the developer, bought the block. I made friends with Doug Steiner. I said, "Will you sell me this building?" And plus, I had 7 years left on the lease, so I was in the right place for me and the wrong place for him at the wrong time. And so he said, "Okay, I'll sell you the building." Then I asked the city if they'd give me $1 million, and they said yes.
And which is awesome. But I remember when you were endeavoring with this. You know, it's not like artists were even imagining that they could acquire property or own a building. And I think underlying part of your question, if I may totally exploit it for the rest of us, artists moving into positions in which they have access to real estate to execute their ideas. Do you think that this is something that has been liberating for you? If you hadn't bought that building, what do you think your work would be doing now?
Well, I can't imagine that. I just believe that. I mean, we also own our Soho loft, only because I wouldn't leave. I just won't leave. It's very hard to get people out. We leave. And so I think that it's critical to own your property, yeah. Yes, the kids' action, I had three things, three extreme action ingredients: flying trapeze, Streb, and kids. And the kids have really, you see how the dancers perform, the kids have really instructed us how to be free and not pretentious in the way that we move with their freedom and their bravery. And we do, the dancers teach the kids. There's 500 of them now that come a week in 58 classes. And it has been one of the most inspiring ingredients to be around kids' action and remember really how to move.
And one of the dancers the other night was answering that, and he teaches the youngest kids. And he said, I don't actually teach the kids, I teach the mothers, so let them go.
Yeah, well said. I have to clock that just for 1 second. With
Well,
my
he just
kids.
said, fear doesn't come from the kids don't have fear.
Yeah.
He
okay.
said, well, you're a mom, right?
Yeah,
That, that the kids don't have fear. The
None.
kids want to do the thing, and the mothers are going, well, I don't know. Tell them to do it. Yeah.
Well, they are closer to the ground, let's face it.
When we got to London, I was drawing flashes to this other documentary, Man on Wire, where he goes between the tightrope walker, between the World Trade Centers, but he also went between Notre Dame and on this Australian bridge. So now, are there any other public spaces or buildings that you could see doing your work around or making a film of that said work? Anywhere in the world.
Oh, yeah, we're working on something called Cities of the World in 2016, 2017 in Amsterdam, London, and New York. So I think I'd like to get on the Calatrava in 9/11. They're very fussy about what you do down at 9/11 Plaza, but I have some plans.
So I think the short answer of that would be yes. Right? So I'm going to try and wrap us up. And everybody who has more questions and more conversation, it's really more about contact. These guys will be popping up and yeah. But there's a journey actually that both of you have taken, I mean, artistically as artists into very particular forms in different ways. I mean, Kat, you work in film, you move cinema in very particular kinds of ways. And it's not, I mean, we receive cinema with ease, really, when you think about it. It's kind of like, oh, there it is. Am I indifferent or am I engaged? What am I doing? We get the ease part. You get the hard part. How do you sustain your practice in, let's face it, an area of a tidal wave of indifference?
I mean, how did it go making this film?
Not this one. I'm trying to get you to talk a little about you as a person who works in an industry and field. I mean, come on.
Or like, how's the field going?
You are not. You would know what the formula is, and you choose not to work in the formula.
Well, I would say in this case, it's easy to answer that because it's exactly what Elizabeth does. That,
yes.
If you look at dance,
yeah,
people come. You're sitting out there like you are. There's a stage. People come from one side. They go to the other. They move around in the middle. They go out the other side. It's so easy to compare. I mean, there's some dance I love. I'm exaggerating on purpose. But it's so easy to compare one dance to another. I like that choreographer. I don't like that choreographer. There's no way to pinpoint what Elizabeth is doing. I mean, I feel like every time I leave, even one of the Q&As, because I don't watch the movie every time anymore, like Elizabeth, because I got to see it 2,000 times before she did. But there's a different thing that I leave thinking about. And I leave thinking about relationships and how, cities of the world could really create world peace, right? If you got people from one place to go and work in a team. I mean, to me, spirituality is all about being a part of a group or a part of a pair or a part of something. That's where the deepest spirituality is, right? So I find that this work opens me to so many possibilities, and I wanted to do that with the film. I didn't want the film to just be, I hate that my field is called documentary because it sounds so boring, and it means, those films we all saw, if you're old enough, like back that were in science class, and these boring movies, and they were documentaries, and boy, were they disengaging. And so I wanted to be, I'm definitely not making narrative, but I wanted this film to be as much in unpigeonholable, unlabelable, undefinable as her work was, and to try to create a scenario that wasn't so obvious in what it was trying to say to people, and to let people leave and have a conversation and say, I mean, I'm not going to tell you the questions to talk about, you know them,
but the aesthetics of the
to
work that you did.
open up questions and not really provide answers.
But all of your films carry with them a kind of surrender to the subject in order to catch the cinema, preserve the aesthetics of it, preserve the aesthetics of the integrity of the form and the medium that you work in, and absolutely amplify the way in which the conditions of the people that you're collaborating with, subjects, collaborators, also have full flight of voice inside of an experience they wouldn't have without your hand. So thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
and to Elizabeth, you know, oh, God damn.
Fucking awesome.
Fucking awesome. Totally awesome. But I'll say this, there's something also in which artists, and I know you're uncomfortable with dance and choreography and all those things, and we're not going to go there, but artistry you're not uncomfortable with, and you have a masterful command of your palette, of your carving out shapes in the velocity of life and giving them back to us. And thank you for your courage and for giving us poetic resonances so that we can keep staying awake to the world. Here's to you, Elizabeth Streb.
Thank you, Kristy. Thanks.
Okay, so we'll see each other outside, eh?
Woo. Beautiful. Wow.